area of circles. Are you ready for this? I think you're ready for this. I think I'm ready for this. Area of circles, you understand, basically based on the formula area equals pi times radius squared, not to be confused with area equals 2 pi r, which is, I'll write that down over here. That's the circumference formula. C equals 2 times pi times the radius. That's circumference, and that is something that people mix up all the time. So don't fall for that. Know that this means squared, which means r times r. If you really want to write instead of r squared, you could just write it as r times r. And that'll maybe help you not get that wrong when you're writing this down. So my circle over here, it has a radius of 12 feet. So we substitute 12 in for the radius. And then you can see I have an equal sign here, and then this is really an approximate value. See how the two lines aren't straight anymore? That's because pi does not equal 3.14. Hopefully we recognize pi is an irrational number. It just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And I could not make a video long enough to tell you all about the numbers in pi. Eventually, down here we get our final answer, which is the area is approximately 452.16 feet squared. Like in the problem when we did circumference, you're going to want to solve these out step by step. So the first step is the formula. The second step is to substitute. And then the last step would be to solve. And the solve, you can see here, I took 2 steps because you're really multiplying 2 things. You're doing the exponent, or if you didn't do the exponent, if you wanted to do r times r, you could do that. So that's 12 squared, which is 144. And after I did that, I multiplied 144 by 3.14. And that's how I arrived at my final answer. And of course, since this area, it does have to be feet squared. You can't just leave it as feet, because otherwise you'd be talking about the distance around the circle, the circumference. And that's not what the problem was asking for here. See a little bit more complex problem right here. It says, given the circumference, find the diameter, radius, and the area. So the circumference, you can see it's a really confusing big number, because we like really confusing big numbers. That makes things more difficult, and we love our challenges, right? Right? Hello? So circumference is 229.9 units. I know you love your challenges. We don't know the diameter. We don't know the radius. We don't know the area. What we do know is those formulas. If you don't know them, that's okay. You don't have to memorize them. I mean, most people will give you a sheet in order to help you memorize them. I know I do. So we have C equals pi times the diameter. Should be pretty familiar with that formula. And we know that the C is 229.9. And we know what pi is. Well, we don't know exactly. I should put in those approximate numbers here. But we know it's about 3.14. And then we don't know diameter. If you know 2 out of the 3, you can figure out the third, right? This is an equation. We have the variable d. We're going to do the inverse operation, which is division. We're going to divide by 3.14 on both sides, because that's the number that's with the d right now. So those cancel. And I divide by 3.14 over here. And I have no idea what that equals, so I'm going to punch those numbers into my calculator. So let's see, 229.9 divided by, where did my divided by? Oh, there it is. Okay, they have a complicated calculator. I'm looking for the other symbol for division. Divided by 3.14. And that would be about 73. We'll put 73.217. 73.217 units. Very important to note with this, if you type garbage into the calculator, it's going to give you garbage back out. So I'm just going to do a quick estimate. 70 times 3 is 210, and 3 is about pi. And that's about right there. So I'd say that's a good answer. Now to figure out the radius, we know that the diameter goes the full distance across the circle. Radius only goes half of it. So I would just divide this number right here by 2. Writing this to the third decimal, even though it goes on, looks like for a while after that, just because that's usually how numbers are going to be written in math. So I'm writing to the third decimal. It would be helpful if you rounded that third decimal if you need to. I'm not a stickler for rounding that third decimal, but it's a good skill to know anyway. And then to find the area, we just use that formula we talked about on the last page. So area equals pi times the radius squared. I'm going to use it a different way here. I'm going to write area equals pi times r times r. That way we don't get confused with that squared and think we have to multiply by 2. Now I've written 36 here just because I'm running out of room. I'm actually going to multiply on my calculator right now. 36.608. I don't want you to be confused by that, but I probably should show my work the full way. I just ran out of room there. I'm typing that into the calculator now so you can see it. And we're multiplying that times itself, so 36.608. And again, garbage into the calculator, garbage comes back out. So 40 times 40 would be about 1600. I should get something a little lower than 1600. 1340. Okay, we'll live with that. And I'm not done there, of course. I still have to multiply this by 3.14. And we should get about 4208.057, something like that. And this is, of course, units squared. And just to be sure I didn't make an error there, we do 3.14 times 1,300. I think that's about right. 1,300 times 3 would be 3,900. So we're in good shape. Finally, the last one here. On a hot day, you take out a sprinkler that sprays water for 12 feet in all directions. So here's your sprinkler. It's spraying out water this way, and all these arrows indicate 12 feet. Okay? So you can see eventually we're going to be able to connect these arrows around, and it'll be like a circle, right? So 12 feet, what does that represent? You have to think about that here. How large is the area of lawn that gets wet with the sprinkler? So they want to know area. We know the formula is area equals pi times the radius squared. And in case you can't tell by that drawing there, the arrows each represent 12 feet. They represent the radius. This is, of course, an approximation. So when I'm all done here, I should get my formula. I'm going to substitute 12 in there for r. I get 3.14 times 144, and we saw that actually in that first problem. And when we're all done, we get 452.16 feet squared.